You were always trouble. Inevitable, really. And you weren't to know it, but you were following a particular trajectory. The young prince is always trouble. A youth, misspent in bad company and oafish pranks, who can mend their ways when adulthood comes rapping at the door, is more prized than any number of young paragons. People remember, but fondly. He was always trouble, they think, shaking their heads and smiling a little. But look at him now. Look at you then, Torquell, the miscreant. You're hiding out because of your latest misdemeanor. Let's say this time it was the apples you couldn't resist, hanging so low on the bough in your neighbour's orchard. So you and a couple of the boys who would always dog your footsteps were over that stone wall and filling the hollow of your smocks with fruit. And then the neighbour, not, after all, out bartering for eggs as you thought, caught sight of you out of her cottage window, came out waving her stick and hollering fit to murder the lot of you, and you were over the wall and gone with your treasure. And the others had some feeble attempt at disguise, hoods up, broad-brimmed hats on, a scarf up past the nose despite the muggy heat of early autumn. But the downside of being the village's lovable rogue is that everyone always recognizes you. You stand out in a crowd after all, almost a head over the tallest of your reprobate cronies. And so you've gone to ground to go eat apples and kick your heels, to prepare your well-worn apologies before going to present yourself to your father and face the music. And you'll be made to go apologize, you know. You'll have some chore to do in punishment. The village elders will shake their heads again and tusk through their teeth. But fondly, always fondly. They were young once, and you serve as a kind of magnified memory of all the trouble they never quite got up to, but wish they had. Right now, you're in the forest, because you know nobody will follow you there. There are outlaws in the forest. Only a handful, because the bounties of nature can't support many. Only so many meals in nettles and acorns after all. Only a handful, too, because the landlord has stocked the place with boar and deer. And while the latter are merely competition for edibles, the former are a real hazard. But there remains a determined little band of those whose villainies were too great for the fond, boys will be boys, indulgence your own delinquencies inspired. Men and women who had a rare spark of anger to them, or who just couldn't live with their neighbours. One or two who, it was said, had done something truly awful, though usually those went further than the wood. Because the landlord is always looking for an excuse to hunt something more interesting than boar. It's said those murderers who get tracked and caught are taken back to the landlord's estates for another hunt, released into the grounds, and given a head start before the dogs. The masters do love their sport. But none of that for you. You're not a villain, only a charming rogue. Nobody's going to give you up to the landlord's justice for a few apples. The leader of the outlaws in the wood is called Robin. And yes, he wears a hood, but only because the canopy isn't quite enough to keep the rain off. You and he have been thick as thieves for years, despite the fact your father's the village headman. Because of course he is. You're the young prince in miniature, after all. Although miniature probably isn't quite the word for you. So yes, you keep bad company. Many's the time you've shirked chores or dodged justice to hide out in the woods with Robin and his constantly changing cast of bad uns. Right now there are 7 of them, and you're sharing the apples round the fire. Robin's lot are a starveling band, ragged in whatever clothes they have on their backs or have been able to steal. Some of them likely won't survive the winter,